Apologize for the slight delay. You would be thinking that at this time of the year we wouldn't be having traffic problems. Maybe that's a sign that the economy is getting better. Welcome to the July 27th, 2011 Board of Commissioners meeting of the Portland Development Commission. Tracy, please call the roll.
Commissioner Dixon? Here. Commissioner Mullis?
Here.
Commissioner Strauss? Commissioner Wilhoit?
Here.
Chair Andrews?
Here. Before I turn it over to Patrick, meeting minutes first. June 8th, 2011. They were in your packet. There was one very minor change to it that I suggested and was made. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion, changes? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, before I turn it over to Patrick, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my travels on behalf of the city and PDC over the last month. I had the opportunity to go to the Clinton Global Institute meeting for 3 days at the end of June. The mayor sent me because we had the Greenlight Greater Portland confab here, which was also a big event. This particular meeting that I went to was focused on national economic development and specifically the creation of jobs. And I was there on behalf of the city to accept an invitation by the Brookings Institute for our Portland region to be one of 4 cities to get Brookings help with the creation of a pilot metropolitan export strategy. The other 3 cities are Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Syracuse. They gave us this opportunity because our economic development strategy, which is based on regional clusters and traded sector jobs, fits perfectly into the President's national strategy of increasing manufacturing jobs in the United States, and more specifically, manufacturing jobs in traded sectors. The buzz at the conference was all about the success of the economic development strategies just like ours, and I found, frankly, that we are way ahead of the curve for almost all of the country in terms of adopting this particular strategy. It is being accepted by communities all over the United States. Patrick and I then went to Washington, D.C. for 4 days just a couple of weeks ago to update our congressional delegation on our work and meet with federal agencies to make sure that they're aware of our programs and we're aware of all the opportunities the federal government is making available to stimulate job growth. In addition to the entire delegation, we also met with the Department of Commerce, Energy, Small Business Administration, as well as XM Bank. The delegation was very pleased to see us and in particularly was interested in the current status of the Oregon Sustainability Center. I think we got some really good advice in terms of how to advance that cause, and we were encouraged not to give up. In particular, Earl Blumenauer was very supportive, said that this was one of the best developments that he'd ever seen in terms of combining all of the elements that make sense, and was very encouraging in terms of moving forward. The departments, the Department of Commerce and Energy and XM, were very interested in hearing about our economic development strategy, and they were amazed to see how far along we are in implementing it. In fact, they were so enthusiastic, I think we were told by 3 agencies that they would like to do some kind of an event in Portland in this calendar year that would showcase our strategy and the programs that they have that fit within it. So it was quite an interesting 4 days. We also found that the congressional delegation, I think in particular, was very happy to talk about Oregon issues. We didn't talk about national debt issues whatsoever. Then finally, I was on vacation last week, so I missed 2 very powerful and positive presentations at City Hall. And I know Patrick's going to comment on both the interstate expansion and the 2-year status report on the economic development strategy, but I know both were very, very well received. And I want to thank everyone for their good work on these important initiatives on behalf of the city. I want to reiterate, as I did in an email to staff last week, the board and PDC leadership all recognize that it's the diligence, expertise, and passion that our staff has for their work that makes for results like this and keeps PDC a well-respected agency. So thank you very much. Patrick.
Thank you very much, Chair Andrews. Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, it has been a very busy time for the agency, and that's obviously a good thing. And once again, I think Chair Andrews' report highlights the daily role that he plays in promoting the work of this agency. So we are all appreciative of his efforts. Last week we did get the opportunity to provide an update to City Council, the 2-year progress report on our economic development strategy, and that report is available online, as well as I think video of the presentation and all the other supporting materials. So anybody who wants to see the results, we certainly encourage you to take a look at it. And I think there was a fair amount of coverage of that. We do feel like we've made significant progress. The work is never done. We're climbing out of a very significant hole from the recession, and a significant number of jobs were lost. Our 10,000 job goal, in some respects, is a modest goal given the number of jobs that were lost in the region. But I think regionally, I think we're all working in the same direction. So it was nice to be able to give that status report. I will point out that today on the consent agenda is the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland, which includes it's the agreement on the transfer of general fund dollars to PDC for economic development work. That dollar amount is a significant increase over last year, and once again, tough economic times for the city's budget. And the fact that our dollars have went up reflects the City Council's confidence in our work, as well as their commitment to the strategy and to job creation. So I think we're all pulling in the same direction. It's very encouraging. And then yes, we did have the first reading of the interstate URA expansion. It seems like the reaction at Council was positive. That action, I believe, goes before Council. Is it Thursday? Thursday of this week. Oh, today. I'm sorry, today. So today. And assuming Council approves it, we will then have an expanded urban renewal area for interstate, and that will pull in the 4 additional areas, primarily the commercial corridors that we believe are essential to implementing our neighborhood economic development strategy in North and Northeast Portland. So big events. I have a number of other updates just to highlight how busy things have been. In addition to all the 2 events last week, the Portland region hosted the U.S. Manufacturing Council, which is a Department of Commerce designated body, about 20 representatives from around the country representing a cross-section of manufacturing, from semiconductors and chemicals to metals and the energy industry. And that council meets quarterly around the country to listen to concerns from the manufacturing industry and to make recommendations on U.S. policy with regard to the manufacturing sector. One of our own companies sits on that council. Chandra Brown from United Streetcar sits on that council, and at her urging, and she's quite an advocate for the Portland region, they hosted that council meeting last week here in Portland. We had an impressive turnout of local manufacturers to provide their feedback on what's going on, and from what I understand, the council was very impressed with that. So a lot of good press for our manufacturing sector here. It remains a vital part of the Portland economy. In addition to that, last week, the Portland Seed Fund announced their first 8 investments. So they named their first 8 companies that will receive a $25,000 investment. It's a heavily Portland-weighted list. 6 of the 8 companies, I believe, are in the city limits of Portland. I think another is in the suburbs, and the last is in the Gorge, and mostly software companies. And I think it's a reflection of the growing strength of our software cluster and the amount of innovation that is happening there. So and those results are online at portlandseedfund.com. You can see the 8 companies and find out all about them. But we look forward to just great things. Hopefully, one or more of those companies will make it big. In addition, a few weeks ago, I met with the new CEO of Greater Portland, Inc. His name is Sean Robbins. He is Greater Portland, Inc. is the newly reconstituted Regional Economic Development Agency. Used to be Greenlight Greater Portland, and it's now a public-private entity and will serve as the umbrella organization for the entire region. Sean is from Madison, Wisconsin. He headed up their economic development efforts there, and seems like the right guy for the right time. And I think he starts work in August, and we look forward to a great working relationship with Sean and with Greater Portland, Inc. I want to highlight a few noteworthy RFPs and RFIs that are all posted on our website, but they all represent significant initiatives for the organization, and it's worth highlighting. First of all, I believe yesterday we posted an RFP for technical assistance providers to the small businesses in Portland, and we're encouraging those entities to apply to receive part of the $500,000 that was funded by the City Council to us for small business technical assistance. That RFP, I believe, is open until August 24th, and then we hope to make decisions on that and get funds to those organizations by October 1st. The second one is a request for interest for the Inn at the Convention Center. That's the hotel that the PDC owns across from the Convention Center. We've asked for statements of interest and conceptual proposals from qualified development teams for that hotel, and we believe that hotel has the potential, if redeveloped, to be a kind of new generation hotel on the order of the Madeira and others, kind of 50s style motels that have been retrofitted, and those responses are due by September 2nd. So we're hoping we'll get some interesting responses on that. The third is we are seeking interest or proposals from architectural and engineering firms to help us advance the work on the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I believe there is actually a meeting being held today for interested proposers, and then we hope to get proposals by August 11th, and that's a critical piece of work in moving forward that project. And then the last two items are just upcoming events worth highlighting. I will be speaking tomorrow at the 10th anniversary of the airport MAX line, the red line. That line has been hugely successful in terms of ridership, but in my remarks tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the role that TIF has played in the development of that district, particularly Cascade Station. I think that's one of the most successful urban renewal areas that this agency has been involved with. The amount of leverage of public dollars to private dollars is I think unprecedented, and I think it also demonstrates the important kind of partnership synergy between the dollars that we invest and what TriMet's done around the region. And then the last one is in August, but it'll happen before our next board meeting. But on August 10th, we have the grand opening of the Junekey Delta House, a project that PDC has made a significant investment in, but it represents not just an important project for the Northeast community, but it's also, when it's completed, is going to be the greenest building in the city of Portland. There's a lot of talk about lots of other buildings that are all great projects, but this project will be, I believe, a living building and a showcase building for the city. So I think we're looking forward to that grand opening. So long list, there's a lot going on, but like I said, it's all a good sign. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Very busy, but very good busy.
Yeah.
John?
Well, I was able to attend two events that were held in conjunction with the U.S. Manufacturers Council's meeting here last week, and very pleased to see both very good turnout and input from Portland area manufacturers, and also to host people from the United States government, the Commerce Department, and manufacturers from all over the country. And one of the folks from D.C. mentioned that it was the heat index in D.C. that day was supposed to be 120 degrees. So they seem to think our 74 and cloudy wasn't so bad.
Thank you, John. Aneshka.
I was able to attend the Economic Development Strategy 2-year update. I believe it was last week. Commissioner Mullis was there as well, and that was really exciting to hear that we could measure after 2 years a lot of the successes, and it was nice to hear all the testimony from people who have benefited from this strategy and that we were such a big part of it. Again, just put everything in perspective in terms of all the time and commitment that everyone is putting into this agency. So that was exciting for me to be able to attend that and to see a lot of good progress occurring, although you always hear people complaining that it's not fast enough and there's more to be done, and we completely understand that, but it's also nice to see the successes that have occurred during that period. And then, of course, I'm also reiterating the excitement of the June Key Delta project, which will be having its grand opening on August 10th, and looking forward to lots of people in the community coming out and viewing and attending that grand opening as well.
Thank you. Charles?
Well, I will say, unfortunately, I was not able to attend the council's reading with regard to the North-Northeast amendments and the expansion of interstate, but I did want to say out loud that Keith Witkowski and Morgan Masterman have done a wonderful job of presenting that. We presented it to the Portland Planning Commission a few weeks back, and then it came in front of council. And I think the key, and this touches on what Commissioner Dixon just addressed, when you look at the June Key Delta building and you look at other things going on in Northeast, we're moving towards accomplishing a goal that PDC has been striving for since its existence, and that is advancing benefits towards the whole of Portland and everyone within the city. And it's exciting to see that North-Northeast amendment move forward. It's exciting to read about and hear about the June Key Delta Center. And it's just exciting to hear Director Quinton's report regarding how much actually is going on inside of PDC. Because as we read the paper and as we look around the country, there's so much discussion about the economic quagmire that we seem to be stuck in. We have some things going on, and it's nice to see the movement forward. So I just want to commend you also, Chair Andrews, for all of the activity that you're involved in and all the momentum that you keep bringing to bear with regard to your role as a chair at PDC.
Thank you. And this will be the last time. I know you're tired of us saying thank you, thank you, thank you, but you talk about a commitment and time, but this North-Northeast was dozens of public meetings and a lot of input, and we all really appreciate the leadership, your leadership on that. I don't think it would have happened without your help.
Well, I appreciate that, but truly the staff did all of the work. I was sitting up there saying yay and nay and moving things along, but the staff did all the work, so I want to thank the staff again.
All right. Well, before we move on to the consent agenda, I had noticed as I was reading the newspaper this morning and actually checking the web, and that's what I'm looking at, that there was an announcement that Garment North America, a boot manufacturer, is moving its headquarters from Vermont to Portland. Again, evidence that our cluster strategy works. That there's only 12 employees at this point, but those people come here because they know they can get trained employees. They know that they have a supply chain. They know that they're in a culture that supports the kind of business that they do. And it's just exciting to continue to see those kind of opportunities come forward. So let's move on to the consent agenda. Action item resolution 6896, authorize intergovernmental service agreement with the City of Portland. This is the item that actually accepts our city general fund, and thank you for highlighting it, Patrick. Although it's buried in the consent agenda, I agree entirely to get that kind of an increase given the budget constraints. Is obviously the city council is very happy with the work that we're doing and has a lot of confidence and wants to move that forward. It also is the only money that we can use outside of our urban renewal districts. So it gives us an opportunity to touch a lot of people that would not have the opportunity for us to give help to without the city doing that. Second item is also the action item resolution 6897, authorize subrecipient contract with Portland Housing Bureau for the Economic Opportunity Initiative. I'll just remind you that the EOI program was one that was under the Bureau of Housing at the city side. We took that over when we combined the Housing Bureau because it's really more of an economic development activity. So I would look for a motion to approve resolution 6896 and 6897.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. I did skip over public comment for items not on agenda because nobody had signed up. I just want to make sure there's no one in the audience that did want to comment on another item. Thank you. So we'll move on to the regular agenda. Action item resolution 6898, authorize loan and disposition and development agreement with Grove Hostel Property LLC. Mr. Shane. And Catherine's coming up right behind you.
Commissioners, Chair Andrews, Executive Director Quinton, good morning. I'm Stephen Shane here at PDC. First, before we get into the proposal, I want to thank those at PDC who've been involved in this project moving us forward. Becky Marsh, who's here, who's provided the underwriting, Steve Blank and Sharon Palmer in real estate management, Dave Ellett in terms of legal work, Lou Bowers providing strategic advice, and Catherine Kraniak, who's sitting here next to me and will present along with me in part of the presentation today. What we're bringing to you today are two actions for your consideration. Authorize a DDA, a disposition and development agreement with the Grove Hostel for the Grove Hostel LLC for the Grove Hotel, and additionally to authorize a $2,465,000 loan for the rehabilitation and acquisition of the Grove Hotel. As you can see on the map, the Grove Hotel is 30 feet wide at this location and shares a party wall with the Grove Hotel. This building has suffered through years and decades of neglect and disrepair. The renovation that this action proposes will have a significant positive impact on the revitalization of Old Town Chinatown, bringing a derelict building to a highly active building, attracting young creatives and tourists to this area. It additionally demonstrates respect for the ethnic Chinese community, especially as this building is up against the China Gate. Additionally, this helps realize the vision of moving part of Old Town Chinatown into the River District. There are key issues which we will address. This is a difficult property, as I already mentioned. This youth hostel is an inventive use. There's an activation of the ground floor. These are all relatively good things. There's a good development and an excellent management team involved. But though this is not what we're going to be providing, is not our typical leverage, and we'll talk about that, and it's a subordinate lien. These are issues as we'll discuss as we move forward. Catherine?
Good morning, Chair Andrews and Commissioners and Executive Director Quinton. My name is Catherine Kraniak, and I am a project program coordinator here at PDC and the project manager for this project. And I'll start with a brief history of the Grove. The Grove Hotel, as Stephen mentioned, was a property that was very burdened by a number of code violations. And in the fall of 2007, City Council requested that the Housing Authority of Portland, otherwise known as HAP or Home Forward, asked that they purchase the Grove and renovate the residential portion of the hotel to bring it up to code, but also to provide a temporary home for Central City Concern's Housing Rapid Response Program. At that time, PDC provided a loan for the renovation and acquisition of the property, and then fast forward 3 years later, Central City Concern was able to relocate their program to the Golden West Hotel, and PDC acquired the property in March of 2010 for a price of $3.71 million, and this price includes the assumption of the prior loan to HAP 3 years earlier. Shortly after PDC acquired the Grove Hotel, staff held preliminary discussions with David Gold, who is member of Goldsmith Holdings, LLC. That is the ownership entity for Goldsmith Blocks, which owns the remainder of Block 32, as you saw in the first slide. The reason for those discussions was that we wanted to look into the possibility of consolidating ownership for the full block to allow for a full block redevelopment in the future. Mr. Gold was interested, Mr. Gold and his partners were interested in purchasing as long as an interim use could be found that would be financially feasible to hold the property in the meantime. With the help of architecture and market consultants, Mr. Gold engaged his consultants to look at the feasibility of an international youth hostel and ground floor retail at that site, and the studies indicated that that was a feasible use and would perform. In September of 2010, the PDC executive director authorized staff to engage in exclusive negotiations with Mr. Gold and to negotiate a development and disposition agreement. I'm going to mention some provisions of the DDA that you see as part of this resolution that are specific to this project. The first being that the DDA requires the developer to operate the youth hostel and the ground floor retail for 10 years after the issuance of a PDC certificate of completion. That's to hold to the original program and intent behind this project. And then if another use is identified and feasible, then the PDC would need to approve that change in use. Also, the DDA asks that the developer complete a feasibility study for the full block redevelopment because this is what both parties acknowledge as the highest and best use for that full block. In addition, the financial assistance from PDC will trigger the require the developer to comply with PDC's green building policy, business and workforce and equity policy, and also to pay state of Oregon prevailing wage rates. The purchase price is $765,000, and that is based on a market value appraisal from September 2010.
So in addition to asking for the approval of the disposition and development agreement, also asking for authorization of $2,465,000 loan to assist in the acquisition and rehabilitation of the Grove Hotel. The loan at stabilization will carry a 7% interest rate, much higher than we typically ask. And it's also secured by a second position on the property with personal guarantees from 4 of the 7 partners, David and Catherine Gold and Howard and Linda Davis. This loan, as we mentioned, is not our typical leverage. As we mentioned, what we've tried to do is mitigate this by the personal guarantees and by at an increased interest rate. In addition to our loan that we're asking for, is in addition there will be $700,000 of private equity to the project, potentially more as they move forward. And I think one of the other primary interests to us is Advantage Credit Union was interested in this project due to its community benefit and an excellent opportunity to expand their portfolio into commercial real estate. They're lending $1 million. As I think I mentioned, the interest rate and the personal guarantees help mitigate the lack of the kind of the leverage that we're looking for. I think what we're looking for is a 7% interest provides potentially a shorter-term incentive for them to refinance us and take us out. One of the things that we have a preliminary view of an as-built appraisal right now. It's about $3.9 million. While that does not necessarily guarantee our payment, it certainly does provide the coverage that we would ask for in terms of our loan. As I mentioned, David and Catherine Gold and Howard and Linda Davis are signatories, personal guarantees, but there are also property owners in the neighborhood. They own the contiguous building, the Goldsmith blocks, remainder of the block, and they own other properties in the district. I think one of the key interesting things about the partners on this is that these are not people coming into the area to make something happen. These are people that are already in the area, have a commitment to move this community forward. As I mentioned with the Gold and the Davises, John J. and Janet J. of Studio J are located in the district. They're located across the street from their property in their Studio J. John J., Mr. J. is also the creative director of White and Kennedy. He and his wife are also part owners in Ping, the restaurant down the street, and they're going to be involved in the creative direction and for the hostel design and identity. Another member of the group, which we think is also really exciting for this youth hostel, is the Ace Group International. They'll also operate the hostel and the restaurant. They operate the Ace Hotels. They have an international brand, which we think will be very helpful in attracting young creatives, people that want to come to Portland, get a sense of the vibe, and move to Portland and create and open businesses here. Additionally, Ace Hotels International brand is, their offices are also located across the street next door to Studio J.
The project includes a 158-bed and 74-room hostel that caters to an international international young visitor. And this project will have a design intent that integrates many Asian design influences. And as you can see from the rendering, the developers have taken advantage of the adjacency of the Chinatown Gate by choosing a neutral brown color for the building so that the gate can be emphasized and it can also draw attention to the history and heritage of the building. Another very critical component of this project, and also critical components of other projects from Ace Hotel, is the ground floor retail. So directly adjacent to the Chinatown Grate in the red, there is a 2,500 square foot restaurant which will have a menu that integrates both Western and Asian cuisine. And there are 7 small retail spaces that will line West Burnside and activate that street. The spaces are only about 440 square feet. That's the average size of the space. And developers are in lease negotiations for all of the spaces currently. Some of the potential tenants include current food cart vendors that serve very popular Asian cuisine in Portland, and other tourist serving retail uses such as a bike shop and a souvenir shop. I'll conclude to speak to the public benefits of this project and how it addresses PDC's strategic plan goals. The new investment that this project brings, in addition to the captive visitor market, provides an opportunity to catalyze the neighborhood and support existing businesses. Also, the international focus of this project, as well as the involvement of an internationally recognized hospitality brand, highlights the Central City as a global destination. The developers are exceeding PDC's green building policy requirements by aiming to achieve LEED Gold for commercial interiors, and the contractor has already developed a workforce and equity plan and is working with the Metropolitan Contractor Improvement Partnership to exceed the targets from our policy. This project draws attention to Portland as an international destination and place to do business, and also provides opportunities for local small businesses to have a storefront, food carts being a primary example, to have a storefront in a very visible location in an affordable space. And that concludes. To summarize, we are asking you today to authorize a $2,465,000 loan and to authorize the disposition and development agreement with Grove Hostel Property, LLC. And we are available for questions.
Well, thank you. Great presentation. As a matter of fact, if Commissioner Strauss was here, he would probably say something like, spectacular! But before we have comments or questions by the commission, we've got some folks who'd like to come up, and we'd like to hear from them first. We have got Patrick Gortmaker, Greg Scott, and David Gold. Please come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for allowing us to make this presentation and your support. My name is Dave Gold. I guess I'm the managing partner or managing member of Grove Hostel Property, LLC. And I guess I'd like to start with it's sort of tough for me because I have all these notes and the staff did such a great job in their coverage of the project that I'm a little bit off here. My wife Katie is here, and the rest of the team wanted to be here, and I don't want their absence to be reflected as on their level of support. But we were told by staff that it wasn't necessary for them to be in Portland. So I want to thank Steve Shane, Catherine Krajnek, and Becky Marsh. They've been great to work with, and I want to thank the PDC in general for their support on this project, without which there is no way we would have gotten off the ground, even from square one. I think they did a great job of covering the fact that this is more than just a youth hostel. This is about revitalization of a block that is, even under city ownership, has remained basically a boarded up building over the last 3 years. The only part that was renovated was the hostel upstairs and the lobby area. So on both ends, next to the gate and at 5th and Cooch, it remains dilapidated. I'm not ready to disclose the restaurants for the retail, but I think everybody's going to be very excited and happy when they are announced. We are at the letter of intent stage right now. We just haven't wanted to sign leases because we didn't want to presume that the PDC would approve this project and we would have ownership. So we thought about contingent leases, but we decided that it would be better to wait. Again, everything was pretty much covered. All I can say is that the Hostel concept sort of was a seed that I planted. The Studio J came up, took my idea and built around it and sort of fertilized the idea. And I think with your support, it'll grow into what I'm calling the Miracle on Burnside. And the only way to describe my enthusiasm for this project is the level of excitement that I get when I meet with my partners. Alex Calderwood from Ace Group International, John and Janet in Studio J. It's just a pleasure to work with them, and I'm just, like I said, excited every time we meet and talk about the opportunities, and I think that this project is going to make you proud, make the city proud.
Thank you.
Yeah, Greg Scott, I'm representing the Ace Group International, and really all I can say is that we're very excited on behalf of the Ace Group. We're very excited to be a part of a positive impact on the neighborhood as well as the city of Portland. And it's been 7-8 months in development since I've been involved, and it's been an exciting venture so far, and I hope to see it realized very soon.
Good morning, Commissioners. Executive Director Quinton. Patrick Gortmaker. I am the co-chair of the Old Town Chinatown Neighborhood Association Land Use Committee. And as Stephen outlined, this is not a typical project the way PDC would like to leverage its investment, but I can't tell you how important this leverage is to this part of Old Town Chinatown. You know, as you know, over 3 years ago, we worked very hard with this commission, many stakeholders and the city leaders to annex 40 acres of Old Town Chinatown into the River District so funds would be available. Thank you. So funds would be available for projects exactly like this. So this renovation will ensure that also another important contributing historic resource in the new Chinatown, Japantown Historic District is also preserved. With the ownership and development team's hard work and vision, this 1907 building will now have a chance to bring international attention and visitors to the city and create new enthusiasm and energy in the south part of Old Town Chinatown, what we like to call the south bookend of Chinatown. As you know, both David Gold and Howard Davis have also been working very hard to bring development to Block 33, which is interesting because Old Town Chinatown had been focusing over the last 3 years for a game-changing full block development on Block 33. However, in reality, what's happened is all of the change and renovations along the storefronts on the remainder of the Block 32 blocks, and now with the Grove Hotel, that will be really the enthusiasm and excitement and draw to the south part of Old Town Chinatown. And while we haven't given up with David on Block 33, perhaps this project will be the tipping point to make something happen on Block 33 as well. So the renovation of the Grove Hotel in this economic time will keep the positive momentum and change moving forward for Old Town Chinatown. We enthusiastically support this project and ask the PDC to approve the funding for this project, truly making the Grove Hotel the miracle for Old Town Chinatown. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for spending the time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Steve and Catherine, do you want to come back? Since I sit on the Finance and Investment Committee, I do have had the opportunity to see this a couple of times, and although it's come together fairly quickly, I can't tell you that it came together fairly easily. This wasn't any easier than any of the other things that we've done. But when I saw it, I'll have to admit I was pretty excited about this project because it works in so many ways. This is a very visible half block on Burnside. And although the property itself is less than half a block and is only 30 feet deep in one sense, the entire half block is empty and boarded up. And as was pointed out in the Oregonian last week, There are several businesses in this area that are suffering from a lack of foot traffic and a lack of our regular citizenry being on the street, and this is going to help that very, very much. It's really exciting that Advantis has decided to make $1 million loan here. I mean, we've been sitting here for a couple of years hoping that the commercial investment world and the banking world would heal, and yes, this is a relatively safe loan, but it is a loan for a risky venture, and I hope that it is signs, again, that industry is moving forward. So you have a use that takes advantage of the considerable investment that we have made in this building in the past. You have a very strong and experienced investment team. You have a very strong manager with an international brand, with restaurant experience. From my standpoint, I don't think we could find a better use and a better team to do this at this point. So I really don't have any questions because I've had an opportunity to review it quite a bit. Why don't we start with you, Charles?
Well, thanks, Steve and Becky, for the presentation. As Chair Andrews indicated, it's very thorough. And thanks also to David and his team that came up. A very creative use of a challenged property. I will acknowledge that. Brings me to the first question. Any other competing activity, and how did we come to negotiate exclusively? I think the public needs to understand that process a little more.
So when we acquired this piece of property, and as the use moved out, we did contact the neighboring property owner. And the idea behind this long-term acquisition was, is there a way that we can consolidate this block together and make something happen? So we entered into some early discussions with the adjacent property owners. A lot of times we do end up in exclusive negotiations. People have contiguous property. They have a use in mind. They brought forward an idea. I would say it was very much an early germ that we worked with them through some of our other programs, development opportunity service programs, to develop a DOS. They came up with a market study that looked at what some of the uses would be and came in and targeted to a youth hostel would be a viable use.
So there were no other real competing activities for that particular location?
That's correct.
Okay. As far as the youth hostel concept, it's pretty unique. I'm curious, do we know how many of these exist in the country, and is there any concentration in any area?
I'm not sure how many exist in the country. I think there are 3 others in the city of Portland, none in the central city, none that have this kind of central location that are in the hub of the downtown. There's, I think, one up in, maybe 1 or 2 up in northwest Portland. There's one in south or southeast Portland.
Yeah, also as part of the market study, the consultants looked at comparable hostels in Seattle and San Francisco. So you'll see these urban, sort of larger urban youth hostels with a ground floor sort of restaurant, retail activation similar to this project. So those were the 2 types of comparables that they took into account.
One of the other things, Commissioner, is that this hostel is different than some of the others. Some of the others have a small kitchen where people can make their own breakfast, and this one will have restaurants and other activation that other hostels in Portland don't have.
And in the research that we conducted, were there any specific risks or issues that were identified as recurring with regard to youth hostels or hostels in general?
I think occupancy in the hospitality industry is primary concern. I think one of the 2 mitigating factors that we looked at, one was Ace Hotel being able to bring their marketing to this. And additionally, the other part I think that we looked at was that the Tungsten report and what the Proforma looked at was a fairly conservative absorption rate. I think they're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60%, and that's what the Proforma is based on. So we hope that there's a significant upside. And we think there's also the other part of this building is the commercial rents on the ground floor.
And this will probably come across as a ridiculous question, but it's being characterized as a youth hostel. If I'm, not quite 50, but older, and I live in another city, and I read about this. Can I come and stay here, or how does that work?
Commissioner, as someone over 50, I would say that they will take all comers. Okay. We're saying it's it's 158 beds and 32 rooms, so you would need to share a room with somebody. Yeah. Might be a bunk bed.
70 rooms, isn't it?
70 rooms, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to be clear because we've talked, and it's in Old Town Chinatown, and it's being characterized as a youth hostel. Maybe there's someone else out there who thought of that question also, so I wanted to ask it out loud. As far as our investment,
young at heart.
What's that?
Young at heart.
Young at heart. That's right. Always. PDC has already invested $3.7 million into this property, and then we're going to extend a $2.45 million loan, and we talked about the leverage. With regard to the investment that PDC has made, anyone in the public will look at this and say, well, the property is now appraised at $740,000 or $45,000, and you invested $3 million. I think it's important to clarify that the investment we made to acquire and some of the dollars put in were remediation. Is that a true characterization?
That's true, and to take an SRO that really degraded the people that lived there. And
better explain what SRO is for anyone listening.
Single room occupancy. It was operated, and it was degrading to the people that lived there. The city was involved, rehabilitating that, and then providing a safe, clean site for that, moving them to another facility later. And that was part of our investment with the Housing Authority of Portland.
And part of that, I think it's important to emphasize, was a social investment.
That's
because
correct.
People needed living quarters. We provided an investment in remediation dollars to get that to standard. And over time, with the economy the way it's been, there's been a depreciation in the value of the property. But I would hate for people to think it was a $3 million property when we did that, and it has depreciated to $745,000. So part of that investment was just to remediate the property so that it could be occupied. And as we look at it now, and once again tipping my hat to David and his team, this is a very creative use and an activation use that will put people in the area and hopefully help the businesses in the area and stimulate commerce in the area. So I think that's the real message that we want to be sending with this type of an investment. And that speaks directly to the leverage. So once again, thanks for the hard work and the creativity, and I look forward to this coming to fruition as well.
Thank you, Charles. Anishka?
And Charles actually asked a lot of really insightful questions to this project. Thank you guys for your presentation. It was very helpful. In terms, as he was kind of saying, anyone could potentially stay in the youth hostel. Is there any concern about anybody staying there? I mean, considering that these are international youth that are coming to our city and wanting to ensure that they are safe when they come here, and just, with all the reports that have been going on in terms of the location in the area, how are we going to have it be a safe location for our international visitors?
That's a very good question, and the team, they might be able to give more specifics, but they are looking into ways of first off, the lobby, as you enter the lobby, there will be a desk right there so that there will be a person on site who can see anyone who comes into the property. Also, the team is looking at only allowing visitors with an out-of-state driver's license to stay at the hostel, so I didn't want to mention that earlier, so that they are very cognizant of being very selective about who does stay at the hostel.
Okay. And in terms of the other small businesses that would potentially be located at this site, is there anything that our agency is going to be able to do to making sure that these small businesses do well and succeed when they do enter the property?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that we're going to be approached by a couple for some tenant improvements. One, I think, a restaurant that I think is currently a food cart that is looking at moving from a temporary use to a permanent use. What we're hoping is that the tenant improvement allowance that is built in the budget will be sufficient to make some of those happen. What we think also, because these retailers are not just going to be, their market is not the captive market of the youth hostel, but it's the market of the city of Portland. And I think that will bring a lot of traffic to these, whether it's the bike shop, the food cart, restaurant, a ramen type shop, and the other restaurants. I think that'll provide that change of activation. I think also, if we look across the street, you have U.S. Bank Tower, which has thousands of people that probably want someplace new to go to lunch on a regular basis. One of the things that we forgot to mention is that this is the DDA has a very short schedule of performance. It's pretty much through February of next year. One of the reasons, with a little bit of a cure period, the reason we did that so short was that we want this to happen. And what the team has talked about is opening this up by January 23rd of 2012, which is the Chinese New Year, which I think would be a significant time to open this. Sorry.
Thank you. John?
Well, great insights and comments and questions from the chair and my fellow commissioners, and I don't really have any additional questions. And we've already talked about this as, this is a little bit different from the normal PDC deal that we've done in the past, and I have full confidence in it because of the building blocks that have been put in shape with the Ace Hotel and with the team that was here earlier, and their not only local presence but their neighborhood presence. Obviously, they have a lot of good incentives to make this work and make it be successful. So I think it's a good project, and I think we've done this several times over the last several months, is taken deals that are just a little bit different, but I think for the times that we're in, it's much better to take a little longer lead off first, if you will, and make sure these things happen instead of buildings just sitting empty. That doesn't do anybody any good. So thank you. Thanks to everybody that put their time and effort into this.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve, Catherine, and Becky for all your hard work. Thank you, David. I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 6898, authorized loan and disposition and development agreement with Grove Hostel Property, LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think you better go to work because January is going to be here before we know it. So we are going to adjourn the regular meeting to convene an executive session. We will come back to a regular session probably in about a half an hour. So the Portland Development Commission will now meet in executive session for the purpose of consulting with the Commission's labor negotiators. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.662D, which allows the Commission to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the Commission to carry on labor negotiations. Only designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media are not permitted to attend this executive session and are asked to leave the room. No decision may be made in executive session, and at the end of executive session, we'll return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. Thank you.